All right, guys. Hi, hello. Good to see you again. What a nice, fun, sensational topic to discuss today. But we have mathematics, ontological mathematics, especially behind us. And so let's go with ontological mathematics because ultimately we know that it's universal and true, right? So ontological mathematics, Illuminism supports rational racism. So let's learn what rational racism is. Racism is in fact universal. Racism is mathematically proven, as we will show here in ontological mathematics. And we will also discuss the theory of everything, how it fits right into the theory of everything. Really fun discussion today. So first principles, let's go back to first principles. Euler's equation, a general fundamental thought, the simple circling, the simple unit circle. And let's turn on this animation, right? So it's simply Euler's formula, different frequencies, which have different radii, each of which can have a unique phase. And this is sort of what it would look like. And of course, if you changed the phase, the alignment of these different waves would, see, you can see here, they all fall together. See that spot right there? I'll do it again here in a second. That spot right here, they all fall together. So that's because they all have the same phase here in this one. But if you change the phase, you wouldn't get that. And then the sum of all these waves would have a different shape. And then that, of course, applies to the Fourier transform and its representation, how it manifests in space-time. Anyway, I'll do a different video on that. So then we go to the soul, which is the instance of all thought frequencies, and we call that the monad, and that would have a structure like this, like a disk, like from the movie Tron Legacy, where they had that idea of disk wars, right? That's exactly what we're doing here in this universe, disk wars, because our monad really is conceptually shaped like a disk. It's not physically shaped like a disk. It has no physical shape, but its mental shape is that of a disk. And so you have disk wars. What a wonderful concept. How could that be random in the movie Tron Legacy, right? That's not random. Somebody obviously knows. A lot more out there, right? So anyway, the monad then is the instance of all, an instance, a union of all possible frequencies. And each frequency will have its own function, its own phase as a function of R. Not likely an analytical function, of course. Could be a completely random function, but it is nevertheless some specification as a function of R. And then, yeah, that's just over all possible circle radii, meaning circle frequencies. And then the grand monad, capital M monad, is then this monad, but we're now just sticking them all together. And now we have n equals 1 to some infinity. And what makes each monad unique is its own nth function of phi, corresponding to that particular nth monad. Now the question is, who's monad number 1? Is that a special position? No, that's not actually a special position. If it's going to be special, I'm claiming it, since I'm the one who developed these equations and have extended Hockney's work, Ontological Mathematics, to demonstrate this. So I'm claiming the position of monad number 1, but it's actually doesn't mean anything. It's not actually a ranking system or anything, but I'm claiming it nonetheless. Up for grabs, I'll sell them. I will sell, you know what I'll sell position number 1 to. And 2 and 3 and them all. So if you guys want to pay me, I will certainly sell monad position number 1. It is actually a very special position. The most special position you can have in the universe is to be labeled as monad number 1 in this equation. It's worth an unlimited amount of gold. There's actually no limit to the amount of value that position has. It would be worth, even saying it's worth this planet wouldn't do it justice. It's worth a galaxy at least. So whatever the value, whatever you can come up with, though, I'll take a look at it, whatever your offer is, and I might sell that position. Okay. All right. So theory of everything. So here I've labeled the circling P instead of C. I'm using just letters P for point going around a circle. Can't use C because C is always used as the constant of velocity for the speed of light, and I'm pretty sure that has to be that or related very closely to that right there, this term in Euler's equation. So I'm going to use P for point going around the circle, because that's what it actually is, right? It's a point going around a circle. Taken as a whole, it's a circling, whatever. And then little m, and then the capital M there. Now, what can we say about this? This is the most beautiful metaphysical position ever created. This is really amazing. It's amazing that you can write this down in one slide. We have in one slide here, gosh, people have died for this. I mean, this goes back to people like Hypatia maintaining the Library of Alexandria and all the knowledge that it had. She died for it. Giordano Bruno died for it. Many others died for it, murdered for it. A lot of names that we probably don't even know. But this is European, the culmination of the European intellectual tradition. And many people fought and died for this, right? And risked their lives for it. It really is a beautiful thing. So the circling has sufficient reason for its existence, as I've covered elsewhere. I'll have to do a whole other series on this again. So the circling has sufficient reason for its existence in nothing exhibiting something and is self-perceiving thought. So the circling you can come up with as a self, it sounds like an elk outside. Could be an elk outside. Circling has a self-sufficient reason for its existence in being an uncreated entity, an eternal substance, unit of nothingness, basically, which yet exhibits something. So it's something that can come from nothing and a self-perceiving thought. Obviously, that's an extremely short summary. If you know what I'm talking about, then you do. If not, go back to my previous videos. Also, I did a live stream on it, which might cover it well enough. Oh, and it's in my book, of course, Illuminism as well. So in any case, the point is that there's a sufficient reason for this thing's existence. Then once you have that, the monad follows from the infinity multiplier and constitutes a complete being. And then the grand monad also follows from the infinity multiplier and gives you all of us and a whole universe. So really you just need two elements. You need something which can come from nothing and be uncreated. And then the infinity multiplier automatically applies. And once you do that, you have everything. The problem has been figuring out what is the structure. What is the actual mathematical structure of that? Like, how do we understand that? Do we understand it through feelings? Is it love? Okay, great, it's love. I mean, how do you work with that? I mean, only in the INTJ, right? Yeah, for a lot of people that's sufficient. I'll call it love. An INTJ is like, wants to go further, and literally we want to have the math for it so that we can engineer it. Like, or literally, that's what we're doing, right? And what are we going to engineer? We're going to engineer the end of the universe in a good way, right? We're going to bring everybody to the peak of their actualization. All via the principle of sufficient reason. So this is all via the principle of sufficient reason. Now what's really amazing is it gives you the photon. You get the photon immediately out of this. I mean, how can you not associate, like with the expanded form, and you have the cosine and then the I sine term. I mean, man, that just really looks like a photon. It really, really, really looks like a photon. So that's cool. And then you convert to integral form by specifying limits on these union integrals through the Fourier transform. And that gets you what looks just like quantum wave mechanics. So think of that. This is metaphysical. This is pure metaphysics, right? These equations are pure metaphysics, the result of the European intellectual tradition as maintained and summarized and collated and brought to fruition through the Pythagorean perspective of thought. And with it, you get some pretty important things about the nature of our reality. Photons, it can explain a photon, and it gets you wave mechanics, which looks just like quantum theory, right? That's a pretty big deal, right? And to just add one thing, real philosophy has always been about, and I commented on this once a while ago, and I said, doesn't it seem like when they talk about philosophy, they're actually talking about something else? They're not just simply talking about, materialism. They're talking, it seems like philosophy actually means something else to the occultist. Well, I'll tell you what that is. Real philosophy has actually been about occultic philosophy, occultist philosophy, which is actually real philosophy. The philosophy we do in academia, materialist philosophy, is sort of a profane, public exposure of it, right? In any case, real philosophy has been about, and this goes back to Plato, you can see that's what Plato was trying to describe, right? Explaining the out-of-body experience and reconciling that with a material experience, right? That's Plato's allegory of the cave, of course, right? And this does it. That's what this does. This explains the occultic philosophical problem of reconciling the out-of-body experience with the material world, right? Just like Plato's cave, there was an out-of-body experience of the true light, and then there was the cave of the material perception. How to reconcile that, right? How do you reconcile that? This reconciles it. It reconciles it, and it also gives you the basic features of our scientific material universe, photons and quantum wave mechanics. And you can also get particles and what would look, because this turns into a flowing point. I know this is getting really beyond stuff, but it gets you what would give you the appearance of something like strings that occur at the basis of the material world, right? So, I mean, here it is. If someone has worked this out, if someone has actually worked this out into actual physics, because we're still pretty metaphysical here, we're just glimpsing the application and relevance to physics. We are making the connection. If someone has actually gone in, solved it, and figured it out, it would be like that movie, Now You See Me Too, where they're getting this chip and they're like, this isn't just like magic, where it's like, con game magic, or what do they call it? What is the correct term? When you're just like distracting someone and then bringing in something else. Like it's tricking, visual tricks basically, or psychological tricks also, which is, your normal magic routine. If you could engineer this and actually apply it through the, immaterial domain, that gets you true magic, real magic, like the real manifestation of whatever you want. It would just be so ridiculously powerful. Anyway, let's continue on to now the point of this, ontological racism. So here's an equation. We saw this last time. I called it M primed. I'm calling it M naught now. And so now the M naught indicates a subset within the grand monad, which is defined by some range going from alpha naught to beta naught, which is just to indicate there is some range, which specifies a grouping of monads which all have a phi n, a phase which correspond to this range, because n is alpha naught to beta naught, right? And so that gives an identity, a way to identify. We are mathematically proving with ontological mathematics that there is such a thing as species and races that have their own phi naughteth band, which will define them. So now we can explain what a species and what a race looks like in terms of ontological mathematics equations, right? And so I just circled, we saw this plot last time. This is a plot, for example, of phi as a function of frequency, or M naught grouping. It would be a function of frequency if you're looking at an individual monad. You can also use it as an M naught grouping. So here you have the entire monadic domain, just from the first monad to the last monad, and then this is the phase of all those. And in that domain you have groups of monads which attain similar phases and form groups, and then that's how you would identify sort of a species that belongs to a planet, or if you can zoom in on enough to the scale of a planet, then you would see that, yes, there are species with their own phases, and then also races with their own phases, which make those races and species unique, right? So, wow, very cool. We have ontological mathematics to demonstrate that there are such things as races. Now, I bring this up because somebody commented, I think it was on one of my YouTube video comments recently, and they said the strangest thing. They said that because ontological mathematics is universal, that there should therefore be no recognition of races. And that's just like the strangest connection, unfounded connection to make. I mean, you say something like that, but where is your mathematical proof of that? And why would you even make that connection? That's the strangest thing to say of all. It's like saying because fish all exist in water, that therefore different races of a species of fish shouldn't be recognized as such and shouldn't be respected as having their own niches of survival in what makes them unique, and that the other fish which don't have those same niches should have equal access to that niche even though they wouldn't fit there. It just makes no sense. Anyway, it was such a strange comment. Actually, it was that single comment, a very brief statement, which inspired this entire video. So the statement was, ontological mathematics is universal, therefore we should not recognize such a thing as race. That makes no sense whatsoever. That simply makes no sense whatsoever. That does not follow ontological mathematics. Why would you not want to recognize what exists? It exists. It's an existent. You should probably know about it and understand it, and it comes directly from ontological method. Where's your proof that it should be ignored? Anyway, we're going to get more into that. So here, ontological mathematics is universal, but the entire universe and everything is contingent. Yeah, so that's a good point. All m not ifs are contingent until the end when they become one with the absolute. However, most m not ifs actually die. Most m not ifs die. On the Earth level, what is it? It's like 95 or 99% or something of all species that have been cataloged, right? Through, what's it called? Not archaeology, but what do you call that science? Not geology. I mean, it's highly related geology. Anyway, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, most are gone. Most go extinct. That we would think would also apply to species which can develop consciousness. I mean, there's no guarantee that we'll survive. I mean, we can obviously easily kill ourselves off. And, when you put it in that context, well, then it becomes very clear that if there is a conscious species which is probing and developing ontological mathematics, I mean, you're getting really, really, really close, and you should really want to support that species and that race because it is limited to a race. Ontological mathematics is European. It comes from European people, right? Despite all the harm we suffered from the stupid Mid-Eastern religions which got grafted onto us way up north, unfortunately, and just screwed us up for so long. Anyway, so in M, the grand monad, there will be different M naughtists, so that means subgroups, just as we see on Earth with different physical species and races, and just as we find with star races. I'm just mentioning that because all the people who do the channeling and astral travel and all that stuff out there, I mean, they're always talking about races. You never find someone channeling these different groups, and these different groups are saying, oh yeah, we're the Pleiadians, or we're the Arcturians, or we're the whatever, and we hate our own race and we think we shouldn't exist. No, I mean, they're very distinct, right? So, I mean, that could be all just woo-woo. But it's only if you channel, say, the universal consciousness called one, or the whole grand monad itself, or the aspect of it at least which has formed a hive mind. Yeah, there's no race at that level, but on the way inside this universe, yeah, there's planetary civilizations and there's races on those planets, and yeah, you would expect that. So anyway, it's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's mathematically proven. There's nothing wrong with races. There's nothing wrong with recognizing races. I mean, people are so afraid of the term now. It's ridiculous. Okay, so rational racism. So here you would have two different M's, M1 and M2, with their own ranges, alpha 1 to beta 1 for N, and alpha 2 to beta 2 for the other N for M2. And so, yeah, that would correspond to, say, this group and that group, for example. Just conceptually demonstrating it. So you have I'm introducing a concept here, rational racism or pro-social racism, right? So in that you maintain the various qualities and pedigree of your race. Now even there we have a problem, because who's defining virtuous? Obviously the Greeks, for example, put a lot of effort, and not just the Greeks, I mean, a lot of people, right? Obviously the Christians, the European Christians have, put a lot of time and effort into defining what is virtuous. And of course, what's virtuous, what is defined as virtuous, can change over time drastically. It can be virtuous at some level in a planetary civilization to completely conquer and wipe out and completely genocide rival tribes, right? And now that would not be considered virtuous, would it? But of course, all sorts of nuance and subtlety to the definition of virtuous. Some people would find, some cultures even now currently find the skill of scamming to be virtuous, right? They consider that if they have a highly developed skill to scam and survive that way through scamming unsuspecting victims, for them that's a virtuous way of living, right? Of course, for Europeans, we would not consider that a virtuous way of living, and we would typically in the past have executed people for trying to engage in that sort of activity, right? Okay, so of course, going on, you respect others as they are and don't assume that they are like you or should be like you. And this is not about being hateful, and it is cognizant of differences, and it's reciprocal. So it's simply recognizing what exists. That's all it means. It's simply recognizing what exists and that there are real differences. Why would you deny that there are differences? I mean, why would you do that? That's disrespectful actually to other races. I mean, forget about your own race. It's disrespectful to other races to say that they have no difference to you, right? Actually, that's what actually irrational racism or antisocial racism is about, is when you conclude or assume that all races are equal. I mean, what right do you have to do that? What right do you have to make that claim for another race, right? Have you asked the Chinese if they want to be considered equal to white people? Have you asked black people if they want to be considered that? I mean, you've never actually asked that, would you? And you never would you? Right? And it would be rude, in fact. It would be a bit rude, right? So it's actually quite irrational, and it's actually antisocial because you're so afraid of other people's differences for some reason. It's so strange how you're so afraid of other races' differences that you want to just say, those don't exist. Oh no, you're actually just like me. Or just like us. It's actually weird, right? So no inherent differences. Differences should be eradicated, denied, and ignored, right? Ignoring differences. Why do that? It just doesn't make sense. There's no ontological basis for it. There's no basis in knowledge for it. Why deny the possibility of knowledge? And knowledge is found in recognizing differences, right? That's where knowledge comes from. Differentiation, right? Which means discrimination. Discrimination means differentiating between items, right? So why would you not do that? It's an existent out there of information, and you want to irrationally deny that information or ignore it. You have no, like the people who pretend to be illuminists and following it, you have no mathematical ontological basis for your position. Your position is emotional, and it's also parasitic, right? So it's bigoted actually. It's actually quite bigoted because you're actually like being so disrespectful to other races and their qualities and their differences, right? Ultimately, this seems to be founded antisocial racism or irrational racism seems to ultimately come down to some sort of parasitical mindset. It must be that you are trying to extract something from another race by denying its differences. There's got to be some sort of an attempt to extract. Yeah, anyway, so that's my position. And that is the actual illuminist ontological mathematical position. So, you're welcome. Here it is. You finally have learned reality about races. Here's a big one. If one am not that doesn't mean you have to be antisocial, right? If one am not, though, is antisocial, then others will have to be antisocial to it. There is a big historical context here. I'm not sure if you guys want me to discuss it or point out who I'm talking about, but there is a very well-established precedent of one particular amnotith group on our planet, which is extremely antisocial. Extremely highly antisocial. So antisocial that they in fact write books about how they're chosen by God and they're God's special little people. Could you imagine how psychotic you'd have to be to write something like that? I mean, it's one thing to just fight for territory, try to make yourself as good as possible. It's another thing to just write a book like that and then try to convince everyone else of it through derivations of it. I mean, that's crazy, but I mean, hey, we're in a mental universe and all pathways of survival are valid. And so, yeah, it's their pathway of survival. It's just kind of annoying to have to deal with. All right, so racial competition. So, yeah, I've covered this before. European people, white people, in a race war, which they're not fighting in because they've been psychologically disabused through brainwashing since the end of the World War II, being told that it's bad to value themselves and value their own existence. Global wars against white people and ultimately why is the reason? It's because white people encode Illuminism, because Illuminism comes from the European civilization, from white people, from the European intellectual tradition, and Illuminism is the key. Ontological mathematics is the key to freedom and escaping slavery and having a sovereign planet of autonomous individuals. And the banking retards and others really don't want that because they really want slaves. They really they just enjoy it. It's just something they want to do in the universe. Like, maybe they'll get over it one day. Maybe if we give it to them, they'll be like, okay, we had the slave but I mean, it could go on for 10,000 years. So let's not do that. We're actually going to not do that. So here's examples of things that are not about bringing in ontological mathematics and meritocracy, right? So the Arab and African Muslim invasion of Sweden, Britain, France, Europe, etc. Guys, that's not about bringing in ontological mathematics and meritocracy, right? The Indian Hindu invasion of Canada, Australia, USA, etc. The Asian and Latino invasion in the USA and elsewhere. The indigenous worship culture that we have now, where we're worshiping the indigenous people who were Stone Age peoples. Guys, none of this is about bringing in and improving ontological mathematics and meritocracy. Do you need it explained to you? Jews with dual citizenship occupying statistically impossible positions in government finance media all around the world. None of that's about ontological mathematics and meritocracy. That's all about stupid Abrahamism and stupid religions and predatory capitalism and parasitical capitalism, right? So none of this is bringing Europe an illuminist future with them. Well, why would you think such a retarded thing? Well, what's wrong with you? It's just amazing that there are apparently people who call themselves joking. I mean, it's a joke. Illuminists who think that this is about meritocracy and ontological mathematics. Well, I know what's wrong with you. It's because you're parasites, and you're probably one of these people trying to sidle in and get some of the pie that you think you deserve. Illuminism is already European, and there's no sign of it at all from the other races. There's really no sign. I mean, guys, like, do I need to state these things? Like, how are these not obvious things? There's no sign at all in the other races' history of something that corresponds with or is analogous to the development of ontological mathematics in the European intellectual tradition, right? There's nothing. No one else has anything like that. What was about bringing in ontological mathematics and meritocracy? Yeah, white people discovering the planet and giving Stone Age peoples European civilization. But that's turning out to have been a mistake. Why? Because it's like the Prime Directive from Star Trek, right? And the Prime Directive, there's actually two aspects to the Prime Directive, equally as important as the other. Most people just think of, the Prime Directive, because if you disrupt civilization that's too young, you'll destroy it. Yeah, that's the one most people generally understand. But there's another aspect, which is equally as important. If you if you find a young civilization and give them stuff that they can't handle and you need to continue maintaining for them, you have actually become enslaved to them. You have made yourself a slave to them, right? Because you've made them dependent on you for their survival. You've given them a mode of existence which they didn't earn, which they didn't have themselves, and which they in fact don't understand and can't maintain. But now they're living this way and you don't want them to die off because you're empathetic and you're a nice person. Well, now you have to maintain them in this state for a very, very long time. But what does that mean? That means that you have actually become enslaved to them. You've made yourself a slave. You were the master. You were a completely dominant master. But through your empathy and through your trying to care for them and through your trying to support them to live like you, right? And that gets back to antisocial racism, thinking that they should be like you and should live like you. That was a mistake, right? You've made yourself their slaves because now you are expending your work and resources in maintaining their survival, right? So that's a very important concept to think about. So people come with a culture which suits them. Islam seems to suit Arabs and Africans. Obviously, the Jews love Judaism because it tells them that they're such special, wonderful people. You have Buddhism and Hinduism for the Far East, and Aboriginals basically have no real philosophy or anything at all. They were Stone Age peoples. I mean, they really didn't have much in the way of writing or thinking or philosophy at all. Now, all of these have been explicitly rejected by the Pythagorean Illuminati writers. They've all been explicitly rejected. Have you been paying attention? Obviously, Islam, Judaism explicitly rejected, right? Buddhism, Hinduism explicitly rejected after testing maybe compatibility, and they found out no compatibility. And then they've explicitly also, in one of their books, rejected the Aboriginals, given that They had no philosophy to speak of. White people come with Illuminism meritocracy. Obviously, yes, we did for a while, and still do have the Christian aspect of Abrahamism. But that was unique. I mean, Christian is pretty unique compared to Judaism and to Islam in the sense of just the European expression of it there was a lot of empathy there, right? Forgiveness of past deeds. And why? Why is this concept of forgiveness so important to the European people? Because it's founded in empathy. It's founded in the conceptualization. It's actually a high IQ concept relatively to the other branches, because the European is conceptualizing how bad it must feel when a person is truly repentant to have made a mistake. They tried to do what they thought was the right thing to do at the time, and it wasn't. And they either hurt themselves or hurt someone else, you know? And yeah, sometimes there's true psychopathy and true criminalism, which then needs to be punished. But, you know, obviously there was an extension given of a second chance. That's a very high empathy, which is actually a very high IQ process, right? But that being said, it's not perhaps natural, but it is pretty unique to European people. But the point here is that the Illuminist Star Trek future that you want is going to require an unfathomable amount of violence to achieve. Because the Arabs who are taking over Europe and everywhere else, the Indians who are taking over everywhere, they're not going to care if European and white people die off, and if they don't even know about ontological mathematics. Obviously, we wiped out. We never even a thought that ever occurs to them, right? No one's going to care. No one's going to honor us for our loss. No one's going to honor Europe for its loss, right? No one will mourn the great crimes committed against us. They'll conclude that we must have deserved it, just as anyone does after the fact, right? Who survives and wins, right? Well, they must have deserved it. Anyone concludes that, right? So it really is conquer or die. And this is a message really to Illuminism and to the future we want of a true meritocracy, right? A rational meritocracy, right? They're not going to give it to us. Do you think that letting Islam take over Europe is going to give us an Illuminist Star Trek future? I mean, why do I have to state such basic things to people who should be Illuminists? I wonder what's going on actually out there. You guys actually should all just come following me for true rationalism and realism out here, and because I can actually develop ontological mathematics and demonstrate to you the equations which actually support these conclusions, right? You actually have no equations. The people who would disagree with me on all this, you have no equations to support your positions. There's no equations. I checked. These are the way that the equations solve, and they support that races should exist and that races are unique and that they're important. And then empirical history shows that most races die off, never to be heard of again. And we, European people in its intellectual tradition, from which, I mean, does it need to be explained to you that Islam is not going to take up Illuminism and ontological mathematics once it takes over Europe? Now, what are you going to do to fight that? Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if they just left, hey, will you leave and let us have our space for ontological mathematics? No, I mean, that's not how it's going to work. You realize that it's not going to work that way? I mean, you realize they're going to cut your heads off and kill you? I mean, literally, I'm not being sensational, but that's what happens, right? Now, I say apparently or but. Yeah, apparently, right? If you go off of nature, what happens in nature, right? If nature is the guide, and that's what that entity one, the universal consciousness, said to us, is that nature is the guide. Well, what does nature say? Nature is actually not forgiving. Nature is very unforgiving. Nature is a relentless test for strength exhibited by survival. And yeah, it's kind of like red in tooth and claw, survival of the fittest, but I mean, it really does look like that out there, and that's certainly how we're being treated by, by Islam. That's how Europe is being treated by Islam, just going to take over. And I mean, it works. I mean, even if it was wrong, if you believe in it, it's still going to work and get you survival, So nature is a relentless test for survival, and nature wipes out 99% of species which have ever existed. So It would be nice to do it without violence. It would be nice to do it intelligently, apply, Sun Tzu and other things and other methods to intelligently get it done with the least amount of violence. Yeah, obviously that's what you want to do. But these other groups will certainly happily use violence, as they already do, to get their way, right? Now we see this or, but here, so or, and that's just sort of, or I'm just referencing the idea that, oh, we don't need to do anything and we're all going to shift. The thing about ideas like that is, on the one hand, it's a very nice idea. Oh, we don't actually need to be here engaging in this. Jesus is the key out of here and we can just escape. Or we're all going to shift to 5D and into a better world. I mean, those are all such lovely, beautiful ideas. Yeah, let's just make the shift nice and easy. And we just have to believe something and hope for it, and then we do it. But so that's so emotionally nice and comforting. But guess what else it is? It's extremely toxically dangerous because it breeds complacency and just allows you to be killed and wiped out, right? So it's actually extremely dangerous to just go with those sort of thoughts. And yeah, although I don't want to be violent, I mean, maybe the truth is that no, it's actually going to require violence. And the violence for European people has been so far bred out of us. Yeah, a lot of people in the woo-woo community are all about this. Oh yeah, we're going to shift to a new world and we're just going to be taken out of here. Or from Christianity, you just believe in Jesus and Jesus is your ticket out of here because you're not supposed to be here. Anyway, it breeds complacency. And in this world, complacency means you're going to die and be wiped out, along with 99% of other species that have been wiped out already. And if we were this close to developing a meritocratic illuminist Star Trek future based on ontological mathematics and really developing the theory of everything, and we just missed it because we said, oh, you know what? We'll bring in Islam to all of our lands and just let ourselves be wiped out by other races, by other species who want to take what we developed because we developed such wealth and resources through our intellectualism and through our science and philosophy, right? It would just be a bit unfortunate if that happened. So let's not let that happen. Okay, so here's a bunch of, this is just an example. This isn't like a manifesto or anything like that. It's just an example of what is actual meritocratic policies. I've seen people posting in some places what they think are meritocratic policies, which really just do not follow at all. Either do not follow from the math and do not follow the math that we've discovered here and learned here, and are really quite emotional and self-destructive. So here I'm going to give an example of what would be actual meritocratic policies, which would actually promote Illuminism and ontological mathematics and meritocracy. So for example, in Europe and in European colonies, deport and remigrate all non-white bodies from Europe and our colonies, right? Including the Aboriginals can go back to where they originally came from too. The interesting thing is that this would be enough to make them go to war, civil war in their own countries. And now there's enough of them that live in our countries that, yeah, it would be a complete civil war. What's so strange is why they feel the need to live in European white societies so badly. Why do they need to live around white people so badly? What's so bad about themselves that they can't stand living among their own people? I mean, really, right? What's so bad about themselves that they don't like living around themselves and want to live around white people? That doesn't make any sense, right? And then at the same time, yeah, you get this, that they hate white people, but then yet want to live with them and hate the idea of living with their own people. It just makes no sense, right? And I'll prove that these are meritocratic policies in a minute. So all housing and land, so this would be obviously for European countries and European colonies. All housing and land owned by non-whites to be sold to whites. Current residents stay on the property until they're remigrated. Destruction of property before they move results in seizure of all financial assets in country. Immediate deportation preceded by imprisonment. Companies given incentives to employ white people. Companies must pay a non-white employee tax at 50% of the employee's salary. I mean, just for example, right, to be used for a fund for white people who've been displaced from employment in their own countries due to bringing in migrants. All advertisements contain white people showing healthy families with biological male and female roles, which promote motherhood and family. You should have something like a 5% deduction of salaries to pay for a support fund in case of divorce. Payable out if there's no divorce, then you pay out the fund when the youngest child reaches 18. The family can do whatever it wants with it at that time. Divorce should be heavily disincentivized. There should be no-fault divorce. People either parent who make false accusations, for example, of sexual abuse that never happened and was not real, they should lose immediate custody immediately. Mandatory 50-50 split of family assets and child custody. Mandatory, no going through the courts. It's just what it is. You don't need to negotiate it, excepting when there's an established police record or cases or court record of actual harm occurring, then you would have to examine what the best situation is there. But otherwise, if there is no actual situation and no parent is making false accusations, then just mandatory. Mandatory 50-50, no ifs and buts about it, right? Obviously, no non-white people in any political positions, including policing and education. Imprisonment for anyone aiding and abetting anti-white sentiment. Retroactive death penalty for anyone who abetted a non-white person who later committed a crime of rape or murder. This happens all the time. Death penalty for anyone aiding policies which lead to erasure of white power or which create harm to white health, obviously. Here's a good one. I'll do a future video on this. We should use something like XMR Monero as a currency because it's totally private. That prevents the banking retards and their autistic balance sheet obsession perversions from running society. That's really what they are. They're balance sheet perverts. That's what a banktard is. They're actually just a balance sheet pervert. They have like some sort of strange sexual perverted obsession with profit and loss columns. It's really quite grotesque. You'd hate to know what they do with their balance sheets in private, but they're really quite gross people, banking retards, banktards. So we're going to use a private cryptocurrency like Monero, where you can't see what actually anyone is doing or spending. That'd be really great. Yeah, I mean, that's just speculation, no stock market. I mean, it's just such a system of parasitism. Obviously, reduced taxes. Obviously no sales or income tax. Largely pay for your own health care. I think the statistic is that 10% of the people, or 20% of the people maybe, consume 90 or 80% of the healthcare costs, and you're just talking about people who should likely just die off. They're just disgustingly fat or unhealthy, not taking care of their own health during their life. And of course, you can hardly blame them because they were never given health knowledge. Obviously, that's going to be a big thing in the Star Trek Illuminist future, is we are going to be taught how to take care of our own bodies, and there will be hardly any illness. There'll be hardly any illness or sickness at all in our future society. Not because we have free health care, right? Not because we have free health care and all the medicine and drugs you need, but no, because we actually have the knowledge and perform the actions to take care of our bodies, right? Yeah, and then the government could issue separate currency for infrastructure and social welfare. Of course, there will be some valuable social welfare aspects, but obviously we won't let it become parasitical. The Hogney books talked a lot about this, as having a government which is bespoke, which actually pays attention to each individual and helps optimize their life and help resolve whatever trauma or personal issues they may have, right? Yeah, voting restricted obviously to white people only in European white countries. And voting, you need to have a skill testing test in order to qualify to be a voter, and that would be reviewed every 5 years, similar to how a driver's license is reviewed or renewed with driving tests. It's easy to do. If we can do it for the entire population of drivers, we can do it for the entire population of people that take a simple test. And of course, it would be a randomized test for each person, so that there can be no cheating of a cheat sheet, which people obviously like to get away with. Obviously, we should have the death penalty for people found purposely hijacking with the currency system, especially the people like the banktards trying to take it over so that they can issue currency to us. We should definitely have the death penalty for them. Anyone who tries to tamper with voting, obviously, death penalty. I mean, this is totally speculative. No political parties. Political activity to be recorded like police wearing badge cams. That's good. That'd be good. Don't you think politicians have to wear a badge cam? Right? I mean, they're serving the public, right? But what's actually happening, right? Especially in the U.S. God, it's disgusting, right? Politicians go in and then they become multimillionaires, right? Any politician whose net worth increases beyond the means of their salary and for a period of 5 years after receives a death penalty. I mean, it's getting pretty extreme. Sounds like North Korea or something, but still, I mean, it's a pretty serious issue when these politicians are just parasites hurting the population, which they're supposed to serve. I mean, it should be pretty severe, right? Obviously, only whites own firearms. Firearms, just statistically, you look in the U.S., firearms are not safe in non-white hands. Obviously, you need to defend yourself. Massive neocarcinoma. Okay, so how can I prove that these are meritocratic principles? Easy. I'll just explain what their opposite is, right? So, no white people can only own firearms. Only the most dangerous and criminal elements in society should own firearms, right? And you should not be able to defend yourself. Would that be meritocratic? Obviously not. Would that promote survival? No, obviously not, right? So therefore, it's not meritocratic. Infinite political parties. Politicians can do everything in secret, and they can always be bought off, and they can make as much money as they want, and they can hurt their own people, and it doesn't matter what harm they cause, and they just get benefits for it. Is that meritocratic? No, it's not meritocratic. That's the opposite of what I stated, right? So obviously what I'm saying is quite a bit more meritocratic, right? Instead of death penalty, bonuses. You get bonuses for hijacking the currency system and voting. Would that be meritocratic? Obviously that's not meritocratic. It's the opposite of meritocratic, so therefore what I'm saying must actually be meritocratic. Voting restricted to white people. Okay, so in a country, in a skill testing test question, or test. All right, so what's the opposite of that? Only the stupidest people can vote. Only the lowest IQ can vote. The people who make up the country also shouldn't be able to vote. Would that make sense? Would that be meritocratic? Obviously, that's not meritocratic, right? So therefore, what I'm saying must be, since it's the opposite, right? How about we let banks have their central bank digital currencies, and they can control everything that we spend, and we have to spend in the time frame that they want, and we have to buy the products that they dictate that their form of cryptocurrencies say that we can buy, and we can only buy their products at specific times. Because they need that information to be able to, run the stock market and make money on the stock market. Everything is free. Everyone can just take as much money from the government as they want. I mean, obviously, are these meritocratic principles? Is the opposite of this meritocratic? No, it's not, obviously, right? So bonuses for people promoting replacement of white people in their own countries, right? Bonuses for people who abet non-white people who rape and murder our daughters. Bonuses for them. Bonuses for people who make white people unhealthy. I mean, would that be meritocratic? No, that wouldn't be meritocratic in societies which are white, right, and should be white. So obviously, right, instead of having white people be able to represent themselves in their interests, given their racial characteristics, no, only foreigners should be able to represent white people, especially in politics and education. Would that make sense? Would that be meritocratic? No, obviously not. How about divorces for any reason? You can lie as much as you want. The court listens to the most sensational lie, and the most sensational lie in court is what determines the outcome of divorce. Does that make sense? No, that wouldn't be meritocratic. So since mine is pretty much the opposite of that, mine's pretty meritocratic, right? How about we show in advertisements that there's no such thing as white people. We show families that are sick and harming each other, and there's no such thing as a biological male and female role, and mothers are made fun of, and families are mocked. Would that be healthy for society? No. Would that be meritocratic for society? No. That wouldn't promote meritocracy. Right, so obviously what I'm saying must actually be then, right? I know this is all very new for a lot of you. A lot of you are probably really shocked by all this, but you just go through the opposites, right? Go through the opposites and you will have to conclude, yes, what I'm saying must be the meritocratic position, since its opposite is clearly not meritocratic, right? So in a white country, how about you employ no white people, make them all homeless? Companies are given incentives to employ non-white people only, and white people get no tuition funds, and they just all have to be made unemployed in their own countries. Does that make sense? Right? That's actually happening a lot. right? That is actually happening a lot with all the Indians coming in to take our jobs, and our young high school students and university students can no longer find work because the work is being done by Indian adults who are, I mean, you're engaging in slavery. If you promote that, you're actually just engaging in slavery, and you're just serving the predatory, parasitical capitalists in that. That's why they're bringing in all the Indians, because they work for cheaper. Yeah, but now our own people, our own students, have no work and can't work summer jobs anymore or part-time jobs, right? So it's not meritocratic, is it? It's what I'm saying is meritocratic, obviously, right? And then obviously these two are just so obvious. I didn't need to go on. Obviously, right? I know that this sort of way of thinking is probably very new to some Illuminists. I know there's a few out there following me who understand all this, but for the ones who this seems so new and shocking, you really just ought to start following me and just let's build this community and start getting things moving to create the meritocratic Star Trek future of just awesome people who, don't steal and don't scam and don't want to just hurt each other and steal from each other, and who can participate at a very high level of intelligence and IQ, right? Let's do it. Okay, so I've removed the old Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I'll do maybe a video on this in the future, why we should support a cryptocurrency like Monero. So if you want to support me through Monero. Let's trade Monero around a little bit, just for the satisfaction. Like I send Monero to a few friends, and we just send it back and forth a few times for fun, just in the satisfaction to know that the bankers can't see what we're spending it on and that it's private. Like, that's why they hate it. They're really afraid. And of course the banker, I mean, you people know, don't you? Like, the Illuminists, even if the ones who pretend to be Illuminists, who are not actually, and who are seeing this, but still follow me. Surely you know that that's like the old world order bad guys, the banker people, right? Who've enslaved basically the entire planet to their stupid usury system, right? So it's fun to use Monero just for the satisfaction of knowing that they can't track it, that they don't know what you're spending. They don't even know how much you're sending and spending, right? They really can't crack it. And it seems so far, I mean, the NSA, National Security Agency in the US, has apparently put out like a big prize of a big amount of money for anyone who can hack it. But they're just like, it's not hackable. It really truly is a privacy-based coin. It is what Bitcoin, yeah, the point is that Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's not private. Like once you make a trade in Bitcoin that's associated with your account with you, it can be tracked. All of your transactions can be tracked for a very long time, right? And they can tell exactly who you are, and they can see how much money you have actually in your wallets too. That's a really frickin' security breach, big security breach. If anyone can see, once they associate you with a certain wallet, and they can track all of your connections, right? And they can see how much money you're trading on, how much money you have in your wallet. Man, a criminal can just be like, yeah, I'm going to go find who this guy, and I know that he's carrying $1 million in his wallet on his phone. I'm just going to break his fingers until he frickin', or worse, until he frickin' gives me his phone password, right? So like Bitcoin, it's going to crash one day once it becomes clear just how unsafe of a currency it is. And anyway, everyone's going to go into Monero, actually. That'll be the last bastion of safety, because it truly is a safe, privacy-based coin. And the thing is, even with Monero, even if you do have one transaction where, yes, it's clear it came from you, right? That's the only time it can be traced to you, when there's a clear record of some sort of paper trail agreement. After that, even if you go and make other transactions with other people, anyway, it can't be tracked like the way Bitcoin can. It can't be followed, and especially the balance in your account, in your wallet, cannot be discovered, cannot be seen. And actually, also from outside, you can't see how much you're spending. Actually, to how much has been spent in a transaction also cannot be seen. So Monero is really a true futuristic digital currency, which is basically a true digital equivalent to cash. And, it's not that I want anonymity or cash-like anonymity because I'm engaged or want to engage in criminal activity. I don't do anything criminal. I mean, I'm a very clean person. I'm as clean as a whistle. Like, I don't even drink alcohol. Not that that's illegal. I certainly would never, and I mean marijuana, but I would never, is legal in Canada, but I would never buy it. I'm not interested in it. I mean, there's just nothing I do, but I would still want a privacy, a private currency, because it really helps prevent these banking parasite retards from doing all the stupid bullshit that they've come up with over the centuries for monitoring your money so that they can steal it and scam you from it, right? And just to deprive them of their disgusting sexual perversion with their balance sheets. I mean, God, just to think what they do with Excel, or if they even write it down on paper. They must do really disgusting things with their stupid profit and loss sheets. As bankers, they're just such filthy, horrible, disgusting people. It's really just a joke. And anyway, if we develop this Monero system, a true private system where they can't, where the banktards can't do their disgusting, perverted things with it anymore, maybe they'll just leave, because they'll just be like, okay, there's no fertile ground here anymore. Obviously, they'll probably try killing us all before they get that chance, but I mean, I'd rather risk that than be a slave to their disgusting perversions. So anyway, send me some Monero for fun, just for the satisfaction of knowing that you've done something completely private, which no spy agency and no bank agency on earth can see that you did, and who you sent it to, and how much it was, right? Very fun. And yeah, there's my books. This has gone on too long, but in the future, I want to talk about my book, Planet Wars, a little bit. I mean, just read the intro for Planet Wars. Read the intro that I have up on the Amazon page for Planet Wars. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-boggling. It's crazy. It would make such a good movie. It's such a great script. What's great about it is that it's real life and actually happening. It's not just a movie. It's beyond anything we've had in the movies so far, actually. It's related. There's a lot of things which have come close. But yeah, it's really, really good. Okay, guys, that's long enough. So I hope you are all good and having fun and enjoyed this. Oh my gosh, an hour. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.